Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to unpack those complex stories, the ones that blow up, and give you the insights you really need. Today, we are diving into something that's definitely caught a lot of attention lately. It's the sexual assault allegations against the Motown legend Smokey Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
When stuff like this breaks, social media just explodes, headlines fly everywhere, and it's really easy to get swept up in that initial reaction.
Absolutely.
So our mission here, like always, is to cut through that noise, help you get a clear, factual handle on what's actually going on.
Yeah, exactly. And for this deep dive, we're really unraveling this unfolding legal battle. It involves Smokey Robinson, his wife Frances, and 4 women who used to work for them as housekeepers.
Uh-huh.
We're drawing from, the actual civil lawsuit, documents, excerpts from those, plus news reports from places like the BBC, NBC, ABC. Good sources, and also some analysis from a legal podcast that's been tracking this specific case pretty closely.
Okay, so what's the goal for you listening? We want to pull out the really important bits, the key facts from all of these different places. Think of it like your shortcut to being properly informed on this whole complex situation without getting totally bogged down. It's all put together just for you. All right, so let's set the scene a bit. Smokey Robinson, most people know the name. He's a genuine legend. American R&B, soul singer, songwriter, producer.
Founder of the Miracles.
Exactly. Defined that whole Motown sound back in the 60s. He's 85 years old now, as of May 2025. So these allegations, they first really hit the public eye in May 2025. 4 women, all former housekeepers for him.
Right.
They're accusing him of sexual assault, harassment, other workplace stuff too. And they say it happened over almost 2 decades.
Yeah, a long time.
At his homes in the LA area, starting apparently way back in 2006 or 2007.
And the first sort of official step was this civil lawsuit. It was filed in Los Angeles Superior Court by these 4 women, but they're using pseudonyms Jane Doe 1, Jane Doe 2, Jane Doe 3, Jane Doe 4.
Which is pretty standard in these kinds of sensitive cases, right? To protect their identity.
Exactly. And they're seeking a huge sum, $50 million in damages. But here's the really critical part, and something that gets blurred so often in public discussion. These are allegations. They're claims made in a civil lawsuit. They haven't been proven. This isn't like the result of a criminal investigation finding him guilty. That distinction is just vital.
Yeah, absolutely crucial. And it's not only Smokey Robinson named here, his wife, Frances Robinson. She's also a defendant in this lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
She's accused of what? Contributing to a hostile work environment?
That's right. And the suit specifically mentions her allegedly using ethnically pejorative words and language. So slurs, basically.
Okay. So let's get into the details of what the women are actually alleging in that civil complaint. It sounds pretty disturbing.
It really is.
Yeah.
The documents lay out some very specific and graphic claims. They talk about a pattern of alleged sexual assault and battery. Things like repeated rape, sexual battery, forced oral sex, digital penetration. And the complaint explicitly states these acts often happened without consent or protection.
Wow.
There are also claims of false imprisonment, like Robinson allegedly using physical barriers, maybe locking doors, or using threats to stop the women from leaving when they didn't want these encounters. And what's striking is the consistency, across the different accounts, similar methods, similar locations mentioned.
Like what?
Well, Jane Doe 1, for instance, she alleges rape multiple times just between March 2023 and February 2024. She describes him like coming out after a shower, just in his underwear, putting a towel down on his bed.
Mm-hmm.
She says it was in preparation for what was about to occur, often in this specific blue bedroom.
Okay. The blue bedroom keeps coming up.
It does. Jane Doe 2 claims repeated sexual assaults and harassment from late 2016 to early 2020. She mentions encounters happening in places without cameras like the laundry room or the garage. And again, forced oral sex and rape in that blue bedroom, sometimes with ejaculation on her face, she alleges. She claims at least 23 assaults.
23.
Yeah. And she also says Robinson threatened her, saying Frances, his wife, would be mean if she refused him.
Gosh.
Then there's Jane Doe 3. She accuses Robinson of repeatedly harassing, assaulting, and raping her. Her estimate is at least 20 times over her employment, which was from February 2012 to April 2024. A long stretch.
12 years.
Yeah. She also describes this kind of ritual. Him coming from the bathroom, nude or in underwear, placing a towel, forcing her face down for rear penetration. She even alleged he offered her $500 once to let him orally copulate her, which she says she refused.
And the 4th woman, Jane Doe 4.
Jane Doe 4 states her first alleged assault was back in 2007, actually, at his home in Las Vegas, with more assaults continuing right up until she resigned in April 2024. She also describes that towel ritual in the Blue Bedroom and another residence in Bell Canyon. Allegedly, he locked the door, pull off her clothes, rape her without a condom. It's graphic stuff.
Definitely. And beyond the sexual assault claims, there's more in the lawsuit, isn't there, about their working conditions?
Yes, that's a significant part of it, too. Widespread labor violations are alleged. Things like being denied rest breaks, being underpaid. They claim they worked like 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, often for less than minimum wage, and no overtime pay.
Do they mention specific wages?
They do. The complaint mentions various rates over the years, like $10, $15, $18, $20 an hour, which, for California especially, raises questions about legality depending on the year. And they also claim they were essentially forced to resign because the harassment made it impossible to continue working there.
Okay, so a common question is, why didn't they report this sooner, especially if it was going on for so long? What reasons did they give?
Well, according to the lawsuit and their statements, it boils down to fear. Fear of retaliation, losing their jobs, public shame, obviously. Loss of livelihood is huge. And for 3 of the 4 women, there were worries about their immigration status. That's a powerful silencing factor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plus just the alleged intimidation factor of, accusing someone as famous and powerful as Smokey Robinson.
Right. So these are incredibly serious accusations. How has Smokey Robinson responded?
He's responded very strongly, a complete denial of everything.
Through his lawyer, I assume.
Yes. His attorney, Christopher Frost, has been quite forceful. He called the lawsuit, quote, simply an ugly method of trying to extract money from an 85-year-old American icon. Frost also described the press conference the women's lawyers held as bizarre theatrics and dismissed the whole lawsuit as manufactured.
Okay, strong words. And then Robinson took his own legal action, right? A countersuit.
A massive one, yeah. He and Frances Robinson filed a $500 million countersuit against the 4 women.
$500 million. What are they accusing the women of?
They're accusing them of extortion, basically, trying to shake him down for money using threats. Defamation, ruining his reputation with false statements. And elder abuse, citing his age.
Elder abuse.
Yeah. And his legal team is arguing that the women are deliberately dragging things out, trying to delay the case specifically to hurt his reputation and mess with his international tour.
The one celebrating the 50th anniversary of A Quiet Storm.
That's the one. His lawyers have also tried to get the women's original lawsuit thrown out, partly by challenging their right to remain anonymous, as Jane does.
Okay, this gets complicated legally. You've got the initial suit, the massive countersuit.
Right.
And when something like this hits the news, as we said, social media just goes wild. People see headlines, maybe a clip from the press conference, and it feels like, okay, that's the story, the smoking gun idea.
Exactly. And it leads people to assume, well, if it's being reported this widely, it must be true, or at least there must be something really solid there, even before any court has ruled.
Which brings us back to that crucial difference you mentioned earlier, the civil lawsuit versus a criminal investigation. How does that play out here?
So the timeline is important.
Yeah.
The civil lawsuit was filed first. It wasn't until after that, in mid-May 2025, and after some of the women actually filed police reports, that the LA County Sheriff's Department, their Special Victims Bureau, started a criminal investigation.
Okay. So the criminal investigation followed the civil suit and police reports.
Correct. And it's really important for you, the listener, to grasp this, that criminal investigation is still, as far as we know, in its very early stages. No criminal charges have been filed against Smokey Robinson.
So it's like the civil suit kind of kicked things off, created this public exposure that then led to the police getting involved, like a snowball effect.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Shit snowballs, right? Public exposure from a civil case can absolutely trigger or intensify scrutiny from law enforcement. And it creates this really tricky legal situation.
How so?
Well, there's often this inherent conflict. The tactics you might use to defend yourself vigorously in the civil lawsuit, like, say, filing a huge countersuit, making really strong public denials, those tactics can sometimes be, as one legal analyst put it, totally contrary to how you'd want to handle things if you're facing a potential criminal investigation.
Right, because the stakes and the rules are different in criminal court.
Completely different. Evidence rules, potential consequences. It's a different ballgame.
Now, our sources, including that legal podcast you mentioned, they also brought up some points of skepticism that observers have raised about the women's claims. What were those?
Yeah, a few things have been pointed out. One was the language in the civil complaint itself. Some felt it sounded a bit cookie cutter or scripted, meaning the descriptions, while detailed, maybe lacked a certain individual distinctness you might expect if 4 people were recounting unique experiences independently. That's the criticism, anyway.
Okay, what else?
Another point was the sheer amount of detail about the alleged wage and labor violations, the underpayment, the lack of breaks, all that. Some questioned why this would be such a major focus in a complaint primarily about horrific sexual assault. It led to speculation, maybe, that the attorneys were heavily involved in shaping the complaint to include every possible violation, perhaps broadening its scope.
Right, maybe trying to strengthen the overall case or increase potential damages?
Possibly. That's the kind of skepticism raised. And then just the sheer number of alleged rapes, dozens claimed over years, combined with apparently a lack of reported physical evidence or DNA so far. Plus, some found the explanations for why encounters happened in camera-free zones, or the idea that Robinson allegedly showed them where cameras weren't, a bit. Well, the word used was weird. Unusual, let's say.
Okay, so there are points of skepticism being raised alongside the very serious allegations.
Definitely. It's a complex picture.
When celebrities face accusations like this, are there typical ways their legal teams respond? Common defense strategies we often see.
Oh, absolutely. It usually involves a mix of legal tactics and, crucially, public relations management. One very common strategy is to challenge the credibility of the accusers.
How do they do that?
By questioning their motives. Are they after money? Fame? Questioning their memory, looking for inconsistencies in their stories, sometimes portraying them as opportunistic. Then there's often a consent defense, arguing that yes, maybe an encounter happened, but it was consensual. They might try to back this up with texts, emails, maybe witness statements, if any exist.
Okay, what else?
Sometimes it's a straightforward denial, mistaken identity. Less likely here, perhaps, or just claiming the allegations are completely false, totally fabricated. Another angle, especially for older allegations, is the statute of limitations, arguing that too much time has passed legally to bring the case, though laws on this have been changing for sexual assault cases in many places.
Right, and what about the PR side?
That's huge. Public image management. Carefully crafted statements, maybe strategic interviews, strong public denials, all aimed at controlling the narrative, maintaining the celebrity's reputation and fan base support. And finally, you often see legal settlements in the civil cases. Even if the celebrity denies doing anything wrong, they might settle out of court just to make it go away, avoid a long, messy public trial.
Okay, that's a helpful breakdown. So thinking about everything we've discussed regarding the Smokey Robinson situation, which of those strategies seem to be in play right now, based on what you, the listener, have heard so far?
It's definitely something to consider. You see the strong denials, the questioning of motives, through the extortion claim and the countersuit, the focus on public image with the tour disruption argument.
Yeah.
It really highlights just how complicated these cases become.
Yeah.
You've got the legal system, which, remember, presumes innocence until guilt is proven.
Right. The standard is beyond a reasonable doubt in criminal cases.
Exactly. But then you have public opinion, which forms incredibly fast, often based on incomplete information or initial shock value from headlines and social media. It makes navigating these situations incredibly difficult for everyone involved, the accusers, the accused, the lawyers, even the public, trying to make sense of it.
Yeah, it really does. And this story is far from over, clearly. Both the civil suits and that criminal investigation are ongoing.
Absolutely. We'll definitely see more developments.
So maybe the thought to leave you with is this. We live in this age of just constant information, instant judgments flying around on social media. How do you personally sift through it all? How do you critically assess these high-profile cases, especially when the facts are being fought over, when investigations are still happening, and narratives are being shaped so aggressively?
It's a crucial question for all of us, isn't it? How do we form responsible opinions in this environment?
It really is. This case just brings that challenge into sharp focus. We'll keep an eye on how it develops, of course. Thanks for diving deep with us.